is Minister Aonna. In this e-study, we'll be talking about staying resourceful with very few resources. Today, we'll be coming from chapter 4, verses 1 through 9. I'll be reading the NIV version, so if you want to join in, feel free and come along. The wife of a man from a company of the prophets cried out to Elisha, "Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that he revered the Lord. But now his creditor is coming to take my 2 boys as his slaves." Elisha replied to her, "How can I help you? Tell me, what do you have in your house?" "Your servant has nothing there at all," she said, "except a small jar of olive oil." Elisha said, "Go around and ask your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for just a few. Then go inside and shut the door behind you and your sons. Pour oil into all the jars. As each one is filled, put it to one side." She left him and shut the door behind her and her sons. They brought the jars to her, and she kept pouring. When all the jars were full, she said to her son, "Bring me another one." But he replied, "There is not a jar left." Then the oil stopped flowing. She went and told the man of God, and he said, "Go and sell the oil and pay your debts. You and your sons can live on what is left." So this is a very interesting time in all of our lives, having to deal with this quarantine and this pandemic, and we're kind of forced to be in our house. We're forced to be in this place that we may not be really excited to be here, in this moment and in this time. But the important thing to think of is, how can you be resourceful? Everything that we know, everything that we love, everything that we're used to is being limited. It's being restricted. Commodities that we used to just buy are now being limited to 1 per customer, 2 per customer, and things like that. So you have to get creative and think, am I being as resourceful as I can be during this time? Am I making the most of what I have? Am I making the most of my time? Am I making the most of my resources? Am I making the most of my relationship and my friends? So in verse 2, Elisha asked the widow, "What is in your house? What do you have in your house?" He tells her right then and there, "I cannot help you." What is there there's nothing for me to help you with. What you have will help you. What you have in your house at this very moment will get you whatever you need. So if I'm thinking about during this time right now, grocery stores are short on things. There may be things that we want to buy. It's now the time to think, what in my house can get me what I need? What is it that I can make from what I have that will get me what I need? So in the midst, as she's thinking about all these things, he asks her, "What do you have in your house?" She says, "Nothing. There's nothing in my house." That was her immediate thought, that there was nothing in her house. There was nothing of value. Her husband is dead. His creditors are trying to take away her son. She has nothing except for that house and what was left inside of it. And she hurries up and she dismisses it. She's just like, "I don't have anything." And then she thinks, "Oh, but there's a small jar of oil." Kind of just throws that in there like, "Oh, but that isn't going to do anything." Like, she's expecting for him to give her an answer, give her a solution right then and there. Like, what I have in my house right now, how is that going to help me keep my sons? How is that going to help me keep my sanity? How is that going to help me maintain a life that I once had, that I was once rejoiceful in? There's nothing in that house. She's probably looking at him like, "Are you crazy? I just told you my husband died. Whatever that he left is gone. Like, I just have the house and it's empty. There's nothing in it. Like, it's gone. It is really gone. All I have is this small jar of oil." So in her head, as she's saying these things, she has to literally revisit each and every room in her house. Well, what's in the living room? Okay, there's nothing there. What's in the kitchen? What is in the living room? What is in my room? What is in my son's room? What is in the basement? What is in the attic? What is in my home? She has to go through each and every single room in her house, in her head, before she is able to truthfully answer that question and not just disregard the house as having nothing, as the house being worth nothing, as her situation being worth nothing. She has to really sit there and think about what is in her home and how is that going to take her from point A to all the way to Z, because right now she is at the beginning of the race and there are so many obstacles in front of her, keeping her from keeping her sons, keeping her children, the last things that she has left. So she really has to think about, what is in my house right now? How is this going to help me? I really have to take my time and think about everything that is in my house, because it has to have some type of value if Elisha is asking me, what is in my home? This is a familiar place. And as many times as we get familiar with things, you know, I'm in my house and I know where this is. I can tell you where something is without even thinking about it, without even giving a second thought. Oh, you need sugar? Okay, it's downstairs by the kitchen, well, inside of the kitchen on the cabinet that's next to the refrigerator in the second shelf. There you go. You need sugar, that's where it's at. So our houses are places that we become familiar with. And during this time when we're stuck in a familiar place, it can be very easy to overlook things that are really important and crucial to our lives. You know, so sometimes we forget what's actually in our homes because we're so familiar with it. We get so familiar and comfortable with our situations that we don't correctly assess things. We don't dive into things in the manner that we should when problems arise. We kind of just look to other people to help us. We look to other people to be our saviors, to give us quick answers that will, you know, save our world, that will stop our world from crashing down. She's looking to him and she tells him, oh, there's just a small jar of oil in my house. He gives her very distinct instructions as to what she is supposed to do with that oil, the jars that she is supposed to get, her and her sons, to shut the door in her home. So that same place that she was familiar with, that same place that she thought she knew everything about, he's telling her, go in your home and shut the door. Follow these instructions. When one jar fills up, push it to the side, keep filling it up, keep filling it up, keep filling it up. So that one thing that she had in her house was that small jar of oil. The Bible doesn't tell us how many jars that her sons gathered. It just says many. Her sons went and gathered many from the neighbors. Neighbors with an S. We don't know how many neighbors were around her. We don't give a number as to how many people were in each home, you know, how many vases or jars each neighbor was able to provide. They just told her, well, Elisha just told her to fill up each and every jar. Keep filling them up, keep filling them up, keep filling them up. He didn't tell her when to stop. He didn't tell her if the oil was going to last. He didn't tell her if the oil was going to run out. He didn't tell her if what she had was even enough. He just told her to keep filling the jars. So it's important when you get instructions in your life to listen to those instructions, because they can save you and take you to your breakthrough and take you to your miracle. She listens to him, has her sons go and get all the jars from the neighbors, gathers them up, and she continues to fill them. She just continues to fill them. And then she looks to her son and she asks him, bring me another one. And the son says, that's it. Right there, the Bible says that the oil stopped flowing. The oil. The small jar that she first thought about when she was asked what was in her house was enough to fill up jars with an S. We don't know how big these jars are. We don't know how small these jars are. We just know that it was more than what she had. It was more than what she thought was going to take her to her next destination, to her next point, into keeping her sons and keeping her family together. She was able to be resourceful off of that one small jar of oil and continuously fill up each and everything until the oil stopped. Now, the oil stopped. That is an important thing to remember in this study when you're reading the scripture and this passage, when you're in a tight spot in your life, when you're trying to figure out, how do you make ends meet? Am I going to be able to keep what I have? Am I going to have to give everything away and be left with nothing? It says that the oil stopped. The Bible does not say that she was left with nothing. It doesn't say that the jar that she had in the beginning, that was empty. It just said the jar stopped flowing. The oil stopped flowing. So that means that she was left with something. She was left with more than what she started, because she was able to fill so many jars up. And in that moment of being resourceful, she was able to buy back her sons, to keep her family together, because she had to think back in that moment when Elisha asked her what was in her house, when she was quick to disregard everything. That small jar of oil is what kept her. That small jar of oil is what saved her family. That small jar of oil was able to release all the debts that her husband had left in his untimely passing. She was able to keep her sons. And as she had filled all of the jars and the oil stopped flowing, she went and told Elisha that, hey, I don't have any more jars to fill. What am I to do next? He tells her to go and sell the oil in the jars. What is left, you keep it. It will sustain you and your sons. To be specific, it says you and your sons can live off of what is left. So what she had in the beginning was enough to sustain not only her, but to sustain her sons. Let me double check. Let's see. Yeah, to sustain her two sons. So what she had was enough to sustain her. It was enough to sustain one son and the other son. That was 3 people that small jar of oil was able to sustain, to live off of. And when you think of live, we're not saying live as in I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I'm struggling here. I'm trying to make ends meet. I'm worried. I don't know what to do. She is able to live. She's able to live. Now, the definition of live, it has a couple of definitions, but 2 that really stuck out to me was that you're able to supply oneself with the means of subsistence. So she was able to supply not only herself, but her 2 sons. Live also means to have an exciting and fulfilling life. So she wasn't just able to survive. She wasn't just able to make ends meet. She was able to live a fulfilling life with what was left. So I ask you in this time, what is in your house? Do you know exactly what's in your house? How can what you have right now take you to where you want to go? How can it take you to where you want to be? God has blessed us in this time with a moment to think, to be resourceful, to really evaluate what we have, the people that we have, the relationships that we have built. How can we maximize those? How can we use it to its fullest potential and not just live during this quarantine, but definitely not to just survive during this quarantine, but to live a fulfilling life during this quarantine, to live a fulfilling life in the threshold that you were once so happy to be in. There are people that get houses and they're so happy when they first get them, and then time goes on, that excitement dies down, and it's like, well, I'm home. But no, you're stuck in this house for a reason. You are put in this house for a reason. You are told to come in your house, shut the doors, and start filling the jars for a reason. There's something that God has given you, and I know that this time will pull it out. It's just up to you to be resourceful and to truly evaluate everything that you have. Let's say the grocery store is out of bread, but in your house, I could almost guarantee you have the means to make bread. You have every single ingredient that you need to make that loaf that you are going to go buy. So it's times like this when you have to get resourceful, when you have to really think about, what do I have in my house? Because what you have can take you farther than what you will buy would take you. It will take you farther than someone else's dreams. It will take you farther than anything that you could imagine, because God gave it to you. He allowed you to have these certain things so you can be resourceful. Maximize your time, maximize your opportunity. Do everything you wanted to do during this time. You want to start a business? This is the perfect time to start this business plan. You may not have the funds right now to actually go and legally start that business, but you can plan it out. You can plan out your products. You can plan every single detail. You don't have a sheet of paper? Use your phone. You don't have a phone? I know there's probably a sheet of paper lying around somewhere. You don't have a pen and you have kids? Use a crayon. You don't have a crayon? Use a marker. You don't have something? Use paint. There's always something else to use. You have to be resourceful and maximize your time and your opportunity, even when you think you only have a few things, and what you have won't take you far. But God has a plan for you. He has a plan for everything that's in your life. And when you maximize those opportunities, trust me, you'll be blessed exceedingly and abundantly. This was beyond anything that widow could have thought, anything she could have even imagined. She probably looked at Elijah like, bro, I have some oil and I don't know where that oil is going to take me. But Elijah knew, because he was a prophet of God, and he told her, that's it. That is enough. Take that oil, go in your house, follow these instructions. And what she was left with was enough for her to live a fulfilling life with her and her sons. So I hope you enjoyed this e-study. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share this with all your friends. In the comments, let me know how you're being resourceful during this time. We love to hear from you, to engage with you, and just make the most of this opportunity. So I thank you for joining. You guys have a blessed evening. Make sure you tune in to all of our social media platforms and live streams. Bye.